Yes, sir.
Yep.
I'd like to welcome you all to the February meeting of the RSU 25 School Board. Would you all please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jim, would you be kind enough to take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Foster,
I'm here.
Mr. Burgess. Here. Mr. Koff is absent. Mr. Claire,
Here.
Ms. Rickman, absent. Mr. Wentworth, absent. Ms. Foster.
Here.
Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Folks do have a quorum with 5 members. You have 59-20 votes.
Looks like
Present.
we're gonna do good on the swearing in session.
It'll go quickly.
All right.
So,
We've got a public participation section, and we've got a lawyer that is going to meet with us. So if our public participation is going to go really quick, we can have that right now, and then we can break for executive session. If we have people who'd like to talk for more than just a few minutes, I'd like to do the lawyer first because they're charging us $400 an hour. So, and they're on the clock right as of now. So it's up to you guys. Are you here to publicly participate? Okay.
Yes,
Would you mind if we did the executive session
that's
first?
fine. I'm willing to listen to what he's gonna say.
Well, the executive session, we ask everybody to go outside because it's just a lawyer consultation. They were hopefully it's not going to be too long.
no, but they meet at 6:15. We got 12 minutes before.
Oh, then we're good. Okay, you guys got 12 minutes. And if we do more, then we'll break and then we'll come back for a second public participation. Okay, so
Okay.
this is our time for public participation. And you're welcome to publicly participate. We broadcast live on YouTube at rsu25.org/school board. You can email for public comment at rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. Jim, have we had any emails that are public comment that need to be read in?
No.
No, okay.
Not yet.
All right, and we have some folks who would like to public comment. And so what we'd ask is you come up and you just declare your name and what town you're from, and then you can tell us whatever you'd like. Within,
Is this time? I thought it was time.
no, it's not time, except for we've got this lawyer coming in 12 minutes. So,
Oh. Okay, so I'm Gina Bass. I'm a Bucksport resident. So I'm here because I want the mask mandate to be removed from as a school's decision and make it a parent's choice. So with that being said, I've already sent you all an email about a video that CNN released about how the mask mandate should be shifted from the schools and give the parents a choice if they want to send with or without. And I don't understand, but I never got a response from any of you. So with this being said, I see that coming before you today that I don't need to throw out the numbers of COVID cases. I don't need to throw the number of, sorry, I just lost my space. Nor the deaths that of COVID, or to the children with learning disabilities that this is affect. But actually I am, and I'm gonna give you my personal story tonight. So for example, my son is a 4-year-old boy that is in pre-K. He has an individualized educational program or an IEP already in place through the Child Developmental Services or CDS. You know what's on that IEP? He has a speech delay. Now, the question I have for you, school board, is how do you help a child with speech delay? I can tell you, my son needs to see the mouth move to make the correct sounds. My son's speech teacher has a special mask that has a clear piece in the middle of it so my son can see her mouth move and how she makes the sounds. But then after that 45-minute session twice a week, he is now in a classroom with teachers and his peers that has closed mask. So he's not getting any extra, so he just gets that 45-minute session twice a week. And you know what, the real reason I share this story with you tonight is that I had a meeting with his teacher and the CDS, and they're all talking and he has to stay back. He's gonna have to stay back and not move forward with his fellow friends because of his speech delay, and he's not getting the proper being able to talk to people and be able to see how the mouth moves, to be able to get equal rights for that education he deserves. Please, let's go back to normal. Let's remove the mask. But that's not what I'm also here for. I'm also here to tell you that I'm going to switch it up. And tonight I'm also going to talk to you about that American flag over there. And I don't understand how you can pledge your allegiance to that flag that stands for freedom. And none of you have given us the freedom of choice for our kids that cannot talk. And I am here to speak for him tonight. The pledge of allegiance to that flag as a pledge to the ideas of our forefathers, the men and women who have fought and died for the building of this great nation. It's a pledge to fulfill our duties and obligations as citizens of the United States and uphold the principles of the Constitution. And last but not least, it's a pledge to maintain the 4 great freedoms cherished by all Americans: freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom from want, and the freedom of fear. I'm done living in fear for my child's future. I'm here to ask you all, it's time for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other?
My name is Keith Nealon. I'm a Bucksport parent. I am not nearly as eloquent as this lady, but I completely agree that during your review of the back to school plan, it's time to give parents the choice. It needs to be a parent choice. If some parents are fine with the kids have had COVID, kids are vaccinated, it's time to just get the masks off, get back to normal, and allow parents that still feel masks are helpful to their children or to their family situation to allow them to have that choice. And that was all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you like to say something?
Only that I agree with them.
Okay. Do we have any other public comment?
I'm not seeing any, so
Okay.
If I could. So I
Sure.
don't know if folks saw, there was an email today from Sadie Alley Viera. I don't know if you got that in your email late this afternoon.
I did.
Sadie was a former client of my wife's when she was doing hairdressing and had many conversations with her. I got the email while I was on the way home before I left work today and gave her a call. And she's basically, she told me to, if I could just kind of speak to it. First of all, she wanted to thank all of us as school board members for the work that we're doing and decision, understands the decisions we have to make. Just of her concerns is again masking, and she's just quite a long email, but she said basically she and her family are ready to take on the responsibility of masking when they feel necessary, washing hands and such, and was looking for when are we going to be looking to change the mask policy. I shared with her some of what the directive we got from the NSNA today about how the conversations are ongoing between DOE, DHHS, Superintendent Association, School Board Association, Dr. Shaw, and that there's conversation around that. But she asked me to share that with the board. Just wanted to make sure.
Any other comments before we? leave the public comment.
Can we have an update on what your meeting is with the CDC and what type of plan that they do have in mind and what do you think is gonna happen?
I can give that during my report. We've only got a couple minutes. We've got to join the lawyer, but
Okay.
yeah, that is part of my report.
Okay,
So then what I would suggest we do is that we adjust the agenda to move item 1 of new business up to now, break for executive session so that we can meet with this lawyer. When we get done with that part, we'll come back and rejoin the regular agenda. And under item number 1, we've been executive session to discuss with counsel information relative to contract negotiations with Amoresco relative to the Penobscot Narrow Solar Project pursuant to PL 2009 C240 subsection 2. I would look for a second to that motion.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of going into executive session, that is unanimous for the folks that are here. Yeah, just back. And we'll take back from adjustments to the agenda. Are there any other adjustments to have?
We do have two other adjustments to announce. To add to M2A, George Watkins, the VHS JV boys soccer, and add to M2B, Jeff Thibodeau, BMS Title I Ed Tech 4.
Next, I would ask for us to do approval of the last meeting's minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of January 18, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next, we have communications and correspondence.
I gotta be caught up with everything. So in your packet, you have communication. One of them that's fairly significant is the work that the Department of Education has done with the federal government in terms of identifying teacher shortage areas. This list keeps growing year after year. That's been provided to you. I'd like to point out that industrial arts now show up. It's interesting. It's been an interesting conversation for years. Okay, so this is important. So this provides some relief to individuals who get hired for these positions. If they have certain student loans, the Federal Perkins Loan Program, and other loan programs, teach grant programs, then they're be forgiven a portion of those loans for teaching in an identified area. So it's always important. It's a good way for folks to finance some of their education. So take advantage of that.
Great.
I shared with you communication from the Hancock County Educational Service Collaborative, our bus program, as well as we do share a BCBA individual there as well. The board met and major item on the agenda was looking at the proposed budget for next year. The budget was presented and approved by the members present. And so you will be seeing that transferred into your local budget. I will say that as all things play out in the parts with, the amount of money we had to take on purchasing buses, but that money is being offset. We're getting that money back, about 95% of that money back from the state in general purpose aid. Year over year compared to where we would be if we still stayed in a contract situation, we're about $75,000 to the good in year one. So that's a healthy position for that. We also have in there communication regarding handicap accessibility. Earlier in January, the town of Bucksport received a communication questioning access to handicap accessible parking spaces at the Jewett parking lot at the Jewett Elementary School. We had a conversation with the town manager. We have taken up responsibility for plowing that, so we've addressed that. That's been taken care of. The area actually gets sanded a couple times a day if needed. The problem is the way the parking lot is and the drainage. The water will build up from the melt, and so we have to stay on top of that. So we will continue to work on that. We've addressed that. Then the conversation was brought up with accessibility at handicap spaces at Miles Lane School. There are 4 handicap accessible spaces there, 2 in the parent drop-off area and 2 in the general parking lot on beside the walkway access to the back of the gymnasium. We have gone up and taken a look at that. When I say we, Mr. Michaud, our facilities director, has gone up and taken a look at that. We do have a plan to address increasing the number of spaces up there. Unfortunately, we can't do that this time of year because you have to paint and sign properly. Not going to happen right now with the ice. So once we hit fall, we'll be able to address that. I have had a communication with the public safety director. He verified that I can't put up temporary parking, that it has to be permanently signed. So we are addressing that. But that communication you have here, again, this was just dropped off in the office today. I did not speak to the person who dropped it off. They didn't sign it. But so you're aware, we are working on that. Okay. Any questions? those are the communications I have for you. If you don't mind, I'll jump right into my report. We are at the very busy time of the year. Obviously, with budget development going on, we're in contract negotiations for the teachers, and among everything else, in dealing with pandemic. As I've mentioned to you in my report, there is an active ongoing conversation with the CDC, specifically Dr. Shaw and members of his team, as well as the Commissioner of Education and DHHS, where we are. We've been asking since December, what's the exit rate? You know, what's the metrics that have to be in place where we can adjust the standard operating procedures so we can start to relax some of the expectations that are listed in there. We are seeing a reduction in the number of cases. We are currently, as of last week, we still had 38 cases reported for the week, but that was down. We were up over 85, you know, just 3 weeks prior to that. So we're seeing a downturn in the number of infections, which is great, good news. There is a great deal of energy around the state. People have had enough, and I can certainly respect that for a number of different reasons. The challenge being is we are tied to the SOPs. What has made the conversation more difficult is Dr. Shaw's announcement that these are not mandates. These are strong recommendations. Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's playing with words, but the end effect of this is an impact that we have to deal with, and you need to be cognizant of as a board. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, is you carry school board legal liability insurance and general liability insurance. The legal opinion we're getting from them is that though the standard operating procedures are considered strong recommendations, you would be putting yourself in a perilous position if you go counter to those. We brought this to the attention of Dr. Shaw and to the Commissioner of Education, and we believe the pressure point is the standard operating procedures. And we're moving to get those adjusted so we have the latitude, depending on local conditions, we can make the adjustments. We all know the reality of COVID. It's part of what we're going to have to deal with from now on. And that's just a reality of it. But we also need to have a situation where we can have decisions that aren't limited, need some latitude. So that's where we're at with that. We're anticipating we're going to hear back from Dr. Shaw's office. When I say we're going to hear, just so folks understand, I'm invited into these conversations because I hold a position with Maine School Superintendents Association. I'm actually the city president of that organization. So I'm involved in these conversations. And so not only do I represent RSU 25, I'm representing all the other members of the association. So we're expecting we're going to hear from Dr. Shaw for a meeting either the end of this week or the beginning of next week. Continue on the conversations. One of the concerns I have is we've seen after every extended vacation, we see an upturn in cases. We'll see what happens. We're going into a vacation beginning this Friday. So far, the reports, our numbers are down even this week over what they were date to date from last week. So the trend is positive. That's good news. That's exciting news. The SOP was adjusted once before for contact tracing. We advocated for that, and we got those adjustments that were agreed to put in place. But if we do away with masking, we have to go back to contact tracing and extended, not a 5-day exclusionary period, but back to the 10-day exclusionary period, as I understand it. One of our points when we're talking to Dr. Shaw is those need to be separate. Okay, we need to split those apart. As he did with the first discussion, he met with us, he heard us, asked great questions. It was a very healthy dialogue. I will say people were very honest. They were polite, professional, but they were very direct. Okay, and they're representing their communities and their constituents very well. And he went back and he met with his folks. They had conversations, and then we had another meeting, and then these adjustments started to happen. I'm hoping we're going to be somewhere there. One of the challenges that there's a backlog at the CDC in the number of cases. I think they published over 42,000 backlog of cases, and they came out, I believe the report was today, if it wasn't yesterday, that we're going to see a large number of cases being reported over the next few days because they've caught up with those. Okay, so those are reports that were actually weeks before. The DOE has been tracking the numbers separately from the CDC for schools, and they are starting to see that downturn in the reports that are coming in to the DOE. So we've got two sets of data that we're able to look at, and we have our local data. So it's been an active conversation. There's a lot of emotion around this, respect it. But my caution to you folks is remember that we're connected to those SOPs. The words may say strongly recommended, right? And you may hear that it's a local decision. It is, but you also have to understand the exposure if you step away from those recommendations. Okay. My personal belief, my recommendation to the board is you stay consistent with what you've done with the SOPs, continue to work to get the SOPs adjusted and recognize the changes of what we're seeing locally. To step away would potentially, not going to guarantee anything, but potentially create challenges for the district. So there, but you know, on a brighter note, and I put it in my report, I just want to point it out, we've come a long ways in the past 12 months. Okay, we're actually back to full-time instruction, which is wonderful. Kiddos need to be in school. It's critically important. We're seeing a return of some extracurricular activities. Looking forward to performing arts productions for middle school and high school. The robotics program is actually going to be able to go and compete this year in person, which is exciting. We've had a return of extracurricular participation with limited spectators. Competitive wrestling, which is the highest risk activity identified, has gone well this year. Actually, our wrestling team is off to participate in the States coming up this week, and then they're having a very busy week next week, but they've had a good year. The pool program has been robust and very challenging to administer. And thankfully, Ms. Bennett has taken that on along with some folks in the building. The principals have become outstanding follow-up investigators and doing testing. So it's we've made a lot of progress. I know people are impatient and want it to happen immediately. I see more progress is on the way. I don't control when the time is going to be. Okay. I can influence the best I can. I suspect you'll see something happening as we get closer to spring. I would suspect. And that's not that far away. We're talking April is what, 5 weeks away. So. All right, so I will keep you apprised as I get more information. You will have it also, but I don't control that. The rest of this is on the agenda. We had a good meeting with the Building Infrastructure Management Solutions. I do have for you, just so you're aware of what's going on. As with anything, we have the number of physical plants that we need to maintain. That's always a challenge. Right? On top of those challenges, we have aging infrastructure like boilers, and we have the challenge with the middle school and the exterior siding we know about. Mr. Michaud has been working on LD 153, the 129th legislature required water testing in all water sources, drinking water sources at the schools. They are setting up to get those tests complete. What they had to do first, they had to go around and do complete inventory and label and map every source of potable water in all of our schools. There's a lot, folks. You really don't appreciate how many until you do it. So they're building those maps and they'll begin testing, and we will complete. It's required to be completed before the end of May. We will have it done well before then. And then we'll deal with whatever results we get. Okay. Also, another LD 2021, LD 705, resolved to improve air quality and ventilation in the main schools. This is gonna take effect, it must apply no earlier than July 1, 2022, and no later than July 1, 2026. Hence, part of the reason why we've been working with the building industry, BIMS, I'll just use BIMS. We identified, we did know we needed to have HVAC installed in the Jewett School, it's an older building. But even the research in our other schools show that we need to have those tuned up and get adjusted so everything's functioning to the max capability. So that's another legal requirement that's coming on top of that. And last but not least, down the road, this is not right now, but no later than October 1, 2025, schools will have to test for radon in every room in every school building. And report that out. So on the facility side, there's going to be a lot that's going to have to get done over the next few years. Some of it very short term and some of it a little bit longer. Hence the reason why we really wanted to engage with BIMS, do a complete facility assessment parallel to the work that we're doing. So we come up with a plan, because with these, there's going to be cost. And that's all part of it. We know we have some money through the federal monies for HVAC project at the Jewett School. We also know that we have some capital reserve money put away. But my strong suspicion is that there are going to be costs that are going to be here that are going to be beyond those amounts of money. So we're going to have to position ourselves to apply for revolving renovation fund money for the state of Maine, as well as looking at other ways to finance the cost of these. And my experience shows me that we're going to have to use multiple ways of attacking this in order to be successful to get everything taken care of. So other than that, I'll answer any questions you folks may have.
Are there any questions for Jim?
On these, the radon testing and the water testing, these are totally unfunded by the state,
Yes,
as I assume they would be.
yes, and the law is passed, and I don't know what they put on them for a financial impact. I do know that some of the laws, if there's going to be a financial impact, that's supposed to be part of the bill as it goes forward. And I know some of those numbers have been changing on these bills.
And with that testing, what is the frequency? Is it just a one-time thing or
For which one?
for radon and the water testing?
Yeah, for water testing, it's, we've done water testing regularly and not had problems, but we have to do it on what's called a dead draw. So you can't flush, you have to let it sit for a minimum of 8 hours and then do your draws and to see if you have any problem. Because what's happening with a lot is not the water coming in, it's the fixtures. And if you have fixtures that are very old, there may be the presence of lead, and then on a dead draw, you see it.
Lead soldering.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but
Yeah.
some of these buildings are older than that.
Well, think of the age of the Jewett building, the age of the high school, so
And central office.
central office, and it's like.
They've all got lead solder.
So we'll see where it goes. I know in the past when we've identified like drinking fountains, we changed drinking fountains at the Jewett School because we had identified those. And that was 7 or 8 years ago. We replaced those, so we didn't have that issue. But
So these dead draws would be at regular intervals or just a one-time?
just do it one time, and if you identify an area, then you come up with a plan.
And same with the radon, a
The
one-time?
radon is what they're talking about. It's one time and then once every 5 years after that.
Okay, yeah, because disturbing things can change
Can change
radon,
things,
right?
that's correct. Yeah. All right, so we'll address it and we'll follow through, we'll report out, and if we have to make, steps for mitigation, we'll take care of that. Okay,
The board's chair report, just wanted to give everybody a little quick update on the status of the robotics team. First building the robot, which is going to be a climbing and swinging robot. Got a series of 3 monkey bars that they're going to have to climb up and cross a robot that can go up. And the second arm that will reach out, extend to the next one. So the first one releases and then it swings rather erratically until it grabs the third one and pulls itself up. I believe that they may be putting some videos out at some point in time. It's fun to watch. And it's really exciting to see those kids really are doing some pretty amazing things down there in the shop. And it is a real pleasure to know that they will be able to go out and do some actual competitions. Unfortunately, First is not allowing any spectators this year. So we'll be kind of quiet, but we can hopefully be able to participate by watching remotely. Like we've done in the past. And that was just the update that I wanted to give you. Next, we've got our committee reports, and Abby, do you have anything for the curriculum?
The curriculum committee did not meet. We will be meeting at our one in March.
Finance committee met right before this meeting. We discussed the budget to actual, which we're hoping to be somewhere around 42%. A little bit better than that. There's if you happen to look at the financials, you might be scared by the transportation number. That's just caused because of the way that we did our budgeting and the way that the reimbursement comes back from the other participating towns in our bus garage. If you add the reimbursement back in, we're actually doing quite well there. Are there any questions for finance? Okay. Next we've got policy.
Policy committee did not meet as we were negotiations and other things going on that week that Mr. Buffy needed to put his attention to.
We've got facilities grounds.
Yeah, we met last week and we had another presentation from the BIMS people about the work they've been doing, looking at all of our buildings.
Any real exciting things coming out, or they're just looking around, right?
A lot of air quality right now.
Oh,
Yeah, they're at a point, so everybody knows, they're at a point where it's, okay, we've done the preliminary, here's the issues that we've identified, there's more work to be done. But that's where the next agenda item comes, that, you know, they're gonna need to see more of a commitment with the district moving forward before they invest much more.
Anywhere we get it, bigger do not enter sign on the in way of the high school.
Yeah, that's
Always
dangerous
seems
at
to me when
times.
I'm coming in, there's usually a pickup truck flying right out the exit. It should be an entrance only.
Well,
It'd be nice to,
if we can get a bigger one.
we have like an arrow sign,
Yep,
but
one way.
the actual, red sign that says, don't come here.
Yeah.
That might be helpful.
Turn around now.
Yeah.
This big. I know that sign will blow the budget completely, so.
Oh, don't worry, other
It's-
things will take care of that.
All right. Next, we got HCTC.
Yes, we did meet. Amy went over some housekeeping tasks, and one of them is that we have a couple of faculty members that are resigning at the end of the year that she will have to fill. She reviewed the Skills USA like everything else. They are going to be performing this year, but really no spectators. The awards is going to be done virtual and things like that. So, but they're going to be able to do it. Much smaller number, but still they're doing it. And I am remiss and feel terrible, but we did have a student of the month. Do you happen to have her name?
I can pull it out unless Mr. Trick knows.
The student of the month, the most student of the month from ACTC. I have a brand new rescue puppy that I've had for 3 days, and it didn't want me to leave. And I had everything sitting right there, and when I saw the little dog up the window watching me go out, it was kind of like, oh, well.
So you stalled enough, now I got the answer.
Great.
So, it would be Emily Keniston, and she's a senior here at the high school, and she's in the early childhood program.
Right, and that's from the Rotary, Ellsworth Rotary Club.
Student of the month. for
Student of the
everybody.
month.
Yep, excellent.
So, great, good, thank you. That's all I have.
Any questions for HCTC? Did we have any ad hoc?
No, we have not, and again, as the schedule got filled up, we haven't got back together.
We will.
We will, we've got a general idea, we just need to get together to come up with a final plan.
Under old business, we have none. We've already done the first business of the executive session, so now we can move on to the second part, which is personnel.
Yes, under personnel, we do have resignations. And that just one, George Watkins, who George has been the boys JV soccer coach at the high school. He's taken on other responsibilities and he just needs to step away. So he submitted his resignation. We got that yesterday, I believe.
Well, and he's going to be missed. It was very entertaining to watch him in Orono this year.
Uh-oh.
That's exciting. Also, the training are in Service Day, March 18th. The training, as you see on my reports, is coming together. We have a lot of our new math program training that all of our teachers will be taking part of and be doing that day. And also today, we just confirmed our first training for our August kickoff days. So believe it or not, we're already in the mode of planning things for August. So when you want to have somebody of a national caliber, you have to get on their calendar early. So that's exciting. And then also it is grant time and still working on writing some grants. Brainstorming, working on some grants to fill in some gaps of things that we hope to be working on. So hopefully I'll have more of an updated information for you next month. But I didn't know if you all had any questions.
Any questions? Brian?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Next, we have Andrew.
Maybe.
Yes.
Great.
Short, you have my report and I'm upside down. And this month we've been training 4 teachers to do the alternative assessment. We have 7 students that are taking that. In state in our district is 2 out of state that will be taking the alternative assessment through online pieces. We also have been going to the Hancock directors meeting, and really it's nice to go there because it you're hearing they still have the same type of staffing issues. There, you know, you've got high needs, there's some social emotional programming that they're trying to fill in and those pieces. There's another piece that is kind of coming to light is that the New Hampshire foster care system, DHSS, they're starting to place students in Maine for foster care, which if they're on those pieces, they are coming in and working with that. There's just a couple that we've had nowadays with that, but people are planning, looking forward to next year, and it's pretty much regular routine.
Any questions, Brian? Thank you. Okay. Next, we got Josh.
Well, everyone, so you have a copy of my report. Just a couple things that are not on there. I talked about it last month, but tomorrow night we have our 8th grade step up night here in person, which would be nice. I think last year when we were doing this, I was sitting up here and the motion lights kept going off halfway through as I was doing it through Zoom. Everybody when I'd have people keep coming up from downstairs. So we're very happy to have a more normal situation for our students tomorrow. You know, one thing Mr. West and I were talking about, you know, this year when our incoming freshmen came up, you know, some of the students had never been into high school before, into their first day of high school. Just how tough that, I mean, it's a tough transition anyways, but to never have stepped into the building until that very first day of high school is really a struggle. So, you know, I think it's really important that we're able to have this event in person this year. And we have made some adaptations. We're moving stuff out of the hallway and into classrooms, trying to spread it out a little bit more so there's not as much congestion. We have asked that people just limit it to 2 people as opposed to bringing the whole entire family, just to try to keep our numbers down in the building, obviously for safety concerns. But as we're looking forward to it, you know, it's always a good event, and again, just looking for the opportunity for students to be able to get here and just see the building, more so they're not gonna remember half the stuff that they hear from teachers between now, but they get to walk around the building and say, okay, I remember where the library is and I know where the gym is, and it's not that scary building that I've never been into before. And then as it's kind of mentioned last night, we have had a lot of activity. It's been a busy winter. We've had a lot of things, those look really different. We had playoff game, a prelim game for our girls this weekend. We had regional competitions for wrestling and cheering. We have, our boys are going to prelim game tomorrow night to try to get to go to the auditorium for basketball. Indoor track last Friday, they won, both the boys and girls won the indoor small school championship. And then they will be competing at the state meet next week. So it's just, and there's probably like 5 other events that all happened in between those ones that I just named. It's just been extremely busy. We've just had some great individual success in those individual sports, and then we're hoping we're going to cap this week off with a boys prelim victory tomorrow at Winslow. And then on top of that, the normal day-to-day, like trying to get student schedules set for next year and master schedule, which I kind of detailed out in my report. I guess the last thing I would just like to highlight, and I kind of stuck this in there when I was talking about, but again, I keep bringing up how tough this year has been, but academically, if you take a look at all the grades that have come out, so if you take all the students in the high school and figure out how many courses and actual grades they received on their report cards, it's like 5.08% of them were incomplete. That means about 95% of all grades received by students were passing for the first semester, in the first quarter and the second quarter. Headed into midterms, we only had 16 incomplete grades in the whole school from quarter one. It was a very, very small number. So the students and staff are doing an excellent job. And again, we want that 5% to be as close to 0 as possible, but it's a pretty small number. When you look at, again, if you flip and say, all right, 95% of every grade that we have is a passing grade. So that, I'll take any questions.
And just refresh our memory, just to compare it to last year,
So at the end of 2020, when we went fully remote, we had 367 incomplete grades.
compared to 16.
Headed into that summer.
Wow.
Last year after the first quarter, we were, I think it was 197. I might be off on that. It was 197 or 207. And we were at 90 something after quarter one. You have to remember with our incompletes is that we can have I think we had 111 at the end of quarter two this year, but about 45 of those get made up within the first week and a half. That's especially this year, because if you were out on quarantine, you missed 5 days, you didn't get to do a summative assessment, you'll have an incomplete grade. Or if you missed midterms week, and so you'll have an incomplete on your report card, and then within a week and a half, they get that made up with a teacher, and those incompletes go away. So it's really important to be tracking how quickly those disappear. And so we see that number, it's like 5% right now, probably right after quarter one, it might have been at 8%, and that drops pretty drastically over time.
Josh, when you were here last month, you had said that there was the midterms, that a lot of the kids have never seen anything like that. How did it wind up shaking out? Did they do okay? Or?
So there's a little freaking out in some cases. And this is gonna sound bad, but I think that's a good thing in terms of us kind of getting back to, there's still these, whether we like them or not, there's still high stakes tests in life that a lot of the students are going to have to take, whether it be certification tests, academic tests in college. And I'd rather have them freak out with us when we can surround them with interventions and supports, and they can come in and get the help that they need, as opposed to the first time if you have to go take a welding test, or if you have to go take a test in college and you haven't had that experience. So we can handle freaking out, well, I think a little bit easier than they'll be able to do it in more high stakes world. So again, I think we reduced that because it was only 10% of their semester grade, so it wasn't going to make or break them for that course. It wasn't determining credit. It was really more about in those core courses, giving that an experience of having to take a comprehensive final exam, in a time setting, and again, in a normal year, is freaking out about it, because those are sometimes tough tests and they're rigorous and, but again, I think it went as really as well as could be expected. There was a struggle. I mean, we had to balance trying to get kids that were forced to be remote if they had tested positive, to try to be able to take them if they could remotely. So, you know, teachers were tasked with trying to come up with exams that could be delivered to a student that wasn't with them and a student that was in person. So we had to do a little bit of finagling there. But I think in general, it worked out all right.
Good. Any other questions for Josh? Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Next, we got Todd.
Good evening, folks. You have a copy of my report. Just kind of overview some of the items on there. I'm excited that we're able to work with Kelly Bailey from the Department of Education on really focusing in on some specific 5th and 6th grade groups that could use some support in what we call social emotional learning. Just through the pandemic, we've noticed that a lot of kids have a lot of needs and we try to support them. Kelly Bailey is the social emotional learning coordinator at the state, and she's working with a couple of our teachers to go into students' classrooms and provide some follow-up reinforcing lessons on our weekly advisory. So, if the advisory lesson of the week is how to manage stress due to midterms or whatever the case may be, instead of just hearing that once on Monday in advisory, they might hear it for 10 minutes in math. They might hear it on Tuesday for 15 minutes in ELA, so that it's kind of reinforced and they get that ongoing support so that they feel like they better able to focus on the academic tasks and not feel like they're adrift with some of these other challenges that kids are facing these days. So Hannah Bailey, I might normally say no relation to Kelly Bailey, but that's not the case. They are related. So Hannah Bailey is our art teacher. Brittany Blair is our guidance counselor, and they're working together to sort of bring these lessons into 5th and 6th grade students. And we're targeting the 5th and 6th grade students because those modules that the state has developed, they really feel like they're more targeted towards the younger kids. Sometimes getting older kids to buy into that sort of stuff is a bit of a challenge. So we're going to work on that down the road. But right now we're focusing on 5-6. Evelyn mentioned that we do have someone coming in August to present to the middle school staff. As we got looking at first trimester data, we tried to break it apart to look at, are there any particular groups of students that are struggling more than others? And the one that jumped out to our leadership team the most was students who qualify for free reduced lunch, at a much higher percentage of failures first trimester. And that's not unexpected. That's pretty much the norm across the state and the country, but it's something that we felt like it might be important for us to think about as a staff is, what exactly are the needs of students and families who might be in that situation, and how can we better support them? So we're going to start with a book study at the March in-service day. And then at one of the August days, we're going to have a trainer come and work with us. So it'll kind of be an ongoing focus for the staff. And we're using our tier 3 funds that we get from the state to fund that. So that's one way that we're looking at how do we help students and families through these times that continue to be challenging. And then the last note is just, I hope folks saw that our boys B basketball team got the sportsmanship award. I do truly believe that those banners mean just as much as the other ones. When I was a coach, my teams won one league championship and one sportsmanship award, and they were both as equally important to me. So I think it really says a lot that those kids represented themselves, the school and the district so well in other places. So we're proud of them.
Any questions for Todd? Thank you, Todd. Next, we have Christina.
and you have a copy of my report as well. Just a couple of pieces to highlight. We did have a really successful student council food drive in January. Over the course of a couple of weeks, we were able to collect over 1,100 food items for the Bucksport Food Pantry. And our student council members were able to do their, not their tradition, but student council tradition of loading the truck, which is a big deal. Every fourth grade student council wants to be able to do that. And we didn't get a chance to do that last year, but we did this year. So it was pretty exciting. We challenged our wings. And then Darcy and I just gave everybody, because all the wings did a great job with it. We had a celebration of ice cream in the cafeteria after lunch one day for their efforts. So that was pretty exciting. We have a pretty active student council this year, so it's really neat to see them working with the student council advisor, Mrs. Lily. They take it seriously, so I hope that they'll continue that in middle school when they get there. So it's exciting to watch some of the things that they have planned. Let's see, we're also focusing on math a lot right now with our new math program. And so Darcy and I met with Cheryl Toby and Linda White, our math interventionists. And we've been talking about how we address the gaps in learning through this pandemic, but also stay true to our new math program. So there's that balance between filling the gaps and continuing on with the grade level curriculum. And we're trying to address some of that in intervention. We also plan to address some of those gaps as a focus for our summer school, because it's really hard to present material to students that they have these holes and we're presenting things that are above them. They need to have that exposure, but it's really hard for them to understand. For instance, I was in a third grade classroom this week and they were doing multi-step problems and kind of a basic introduction to some algebra skills at third grade. So it's pretty neat to watch, but it's really difficult if there's some of those foundational pieces that they're missing from the holes that they have. So we're working really hard with them, and our math intervention team of Cheryl Toby's guidance, but Linda White and Heather Chase are doing a nice job with their interventions and their progress monitoring that they're doing on our kids on a weekly basis. So we're working really hard at it, and I hope that that will show in our scores. I was pretty impressed with some of our third graders. Mr. Tripp would be pretty impressed too, because I know he's an algebra guy. So it's like, whoa, this is pretty intense. So they're doing a nice job. Another couple of things that are going on that are really exciting at the elementary level. I know they seem really small, but Scott will understand that these are a big deal. We've had our 100th day of school. It's really big at an elementary school. And we had Valentine's Day. We're really big at an elementary school. So anyway, it's been exciting. Add that with full moon and Super Bowl and all these other things going on, and it's busy. You know, the energy level is up here, but it's been great to have some of those things that are really exciting. A big thing that we'll be doing at the kindergarten level after we get back from the break, we'll actually start the process of the 22-23 incoming kindergarten registration. So we kind of do like a pre-registration model where our secretary Judy will kind of put out information in all the places we need to do, and she'll take some of that pre-registration information over the phone. And then we'll call those families back at the end of April, 1st of May to schedule a time for them to bring in the important documents to get the ball rolling on our incoming kindergarten class. So we're already starting that. Let's see, we finished up our NUIA testing. We're still working on a few makeups, but we'll have that information so we can make some changes to interventions as we need to, moving into the month of March. We do have a Lucy Calkins phonics trainer coming. She was supposed to come in January, but we rescheduled her just for the timing of getting substitute teachers and being able to have her work with as many teachers as possible. So she will be coming on March 24th to work with our K2 team. That's what's going on at the elementary level. Am I missing anything, Darcy?
You have any questions for Christina? No, there's not.
Thank you.
Next, we've got Kathy.
Just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. We've moved our pottery class out to April 26th. There is quite a supply issue, and it's a big surprise. We were told that they could not promise that there would be glazes in the state until at least March 31st, and that's like a big really wish and hope. And so we've gone late April with that, but we're still looking forward to moving that forward and getting that in place. We are going to put a reserve your spot so that people can kind of sign up, and we'll know if we need to do one class or two. Most of the month was taken up with getting our certified clinical medical class in place. That's a pretty big class. They started with 22 students. And we're doing a hybrid remote on-site model. And I was really thinking when Josh was talking about high stake tests, they finished with a 3-hour exam. We've taken training and we're able to proctor that here on site. But there's like 5 minutes at the end where they're waiting for scores and it's just the worst 5 minutes to watch them try not to throw up or cry. And it really is hard because there's a virus protection that runs before they send this very sensitive data over to us because it's got their date of birth and, you know, anything you could ever possibly want for identity theft. So I think it's the worst 5 minutes I've ever seen these poor people go through. Well, they wait to hear if they've got their certification test. And it means employment, it means the world. And it's a big undertaking. They've decided the free 50 community college courses, and that's statewide, which sounds like a lot, but only 16 adult ed students took advantage of that. They do have to have their diploma with one of us, but that's going to become permanent. So they'll be able to hopefully experience at least one college course at the community college level, and they can pick any course as long as they meet the prereqs. And our meeting with HD Design went very well today. We did decide to put off the overarching hub name for a while. It seems to be where the big contention is. We're going to work on a family of logo first. And really what they did today was get the go-ahead to move ahead. We gave them, yes, you're headed in the right direction. We'd like you to come back and put this direction so we can bring it back to our school boards. But it was very productive. We did like where they were going, and moving those two out took out most of the contention. So I'll be updating you hopefully next time with some pictures. And any questions?
Guess not. Thank you. Next we've got Jen Carey.
Hello. Let's see. We've had a lot going on. We're living in the world of, you know, trying to do the things that we have put in place and trying to get some events going. A pretty busy spring, looks like, that's coming our way. So I'm glad to report that teachers, administrators are all making requests and money is getting spent. So that's good. Supplies have started to come in that we're going to be getting distributed to the schools that have requested some materials from Aspire. And we're also starting conversations about how to connect use of the materials to professional development, since we have funds for those as well. So putting together some opportunities to help people be aware of the materials and how they may want to incorporate them into their classrooms. After we finished our goals last month, and then we mapped out what events are going to connect to reach the spring goals. And we've started work on a family night for middle school age in March. And also middle school and high school are both going to have access to the virtual career fair also in March. So we'll be doing work with that. And we've had multiple guests coming in based on requests for speakers on either specific students at the high school have asked to speak with someone in a career field, or or classroom or a group has asked for a guest. So this past month, there was a designer who spoke, and Chris Grindle from the Bucksport Fire Department also spoke to the Stars group at the middle school. And we've had, based on requests at the high school, Jordan was able to set up a conversation with a realtor for our students. And then we had our first connection with Hinckley since the video. The day we were there, we met Robert Magruder, and he was so excited to have the idea of kids coming there. And we said, okay, we'll work on that. But in the meantime, if we know any students who are interested in carpentry, we'll let you know. And so he had a chance to meet with a student. We do these meetings, they're always supervised. either usually virtual. So it's typically Jordan, sometimes a guidance counselor will be there as well. And to prep the students to make sure that we know who these people are and that they're appropriate conversations. So we've had a lot of background work to think about and how to lay out some of these conversations. Another student is interested in the restaurant industry, and so they're going to do a job shadow, not a full internship at this point, that wasn't possible, but a job shadow with George McLeod. So that's coming up. And we are continuing to reach out to local businesses and try to support local businesses. And so one way we've been able to do that recently is we've been purchasing soup from local businesses that teachers can choose which business they would like their soup from. So we're supporting some really small businesses that specialize in soup. So Orland Community Center, Moments, as well as the Ananda Luna down east, which is also in the village in Orland, and Maine. So we hadn't done an order from there yet. So that's going really well. Teachers are excited to get their soup, and it's been supporting those businesses, and that has resulted in a new timeline. Bart McGraw, the owner of Moments, did his timeline. So I counted them up, and we now have over 40 timelines, career aspiration timelines posted now on the website, and happy to do more. So if there's anyone that you could think of, or you yourself would like to fill in your timeline, happy to do those. They just show students that there are many pathways to, and that bits and pieces of things that we do throughout our journeys end up leading to where we are. And it's also been an interesting way, I think, too, even for teachers to learn about other staff and people to learn about community members. And there's many ways to use them. I completed the drafts for the 12 programs at HCTC, and they're in the hands of their instructors to be able to have one page about each program to overview the types of careers, the types of certifications they can get, and an overview of the language for the programs, as well as the photos that we took to highlight. So there's going to be a lot of Bucksport kids in these flyers, even though they may be used in other schools. We really wanted to focus on having kids here be able to say, oh, I know them, and they do that program. So I'm going to print them as soon as I get the edits from all the different instructors in the 12 programs. That's about what we have going on. Any questions?
Thank you, Jim.
Sure.
And last, we've got Jim. Well,
Good evening. Keep it pretty short tonight. Have to announce that my team is back whole. Everyone's back from injury, illness. That makes it much more productive for us as we try to assist folks. Otherwise, there's a lot of background activity right now, planning for upcoming changeovers. As mentioned, financial system, time clock system, our badging up to date, shutting off the network for Mr. Tripp so we can get 5-minute breaks during the day. So a lot of changes with security factors, so a lot of back end, nothing big bang up front, but we're very, very busy. Unless you have specific questions, I'll leave it at that for now.
any specific questions?
I do have a prompt for Jim. If you could talk about the work that you've been doing relative to cybersecurity.
So cybersecurity obviously is a big topic throughout the world and different calibers. As Mr. Boothby and I have talked, we are an enterprise network, which basically means we have everything. We have protected information, we have devices, we have smart devices, we have MacBooks, Chromebooks, interactive panels, PCs. We are an amazing target for people to come into us. We also have an excessive number of users. Unless you get into the college or university situation, it's rare that you have 15 or 1,700 employees inside a business being maintained, everyone connected all the time. So MSMA is working with another company, and some of this I'm going to kind of keep non-specific because it is cybersecurity, but working with another company that is advising their membership on top level issues so we can look further down inside. So we had a listing a while back, I think I mentioned it back in December, of some top level issues that were not necessarily easy fix, but obvious things that need to be fixed. We've completed about 80% of those at this point, and we've delved deeper. So one of the things that we were doing today that did cause a brief outage was that we are wiring our network so that if the end machines became compromised, our servers would be hidden behind another layer of protection. So now we're just adding the layers of protection, which also is layers of complexity. And we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. Part of that's because we mandated for our insurance in order to maintain coverage, but the other part of it, it's good practice. Now, what that is doing is absorbing a lot of time. We wisely use some of our E-rate monies, which is the federal money, matching monies, to bring on board a network specialist who we worked with before in our network deployment, so they're familiar with us. So I spent several hours over the last month and many, many more hours in the next few months, learning how it should be done securely, applying it, and make sure it works. Does that cover what you want me to cover, sir? In addition to that is staff training, which I have not released to staff, and I really want to do it in a bang wow way. We do internal testing, which is called fish test, to see who's willing to click on stuff, who block, what our system is blocking to begin with, because it should be blocking. Roughly a year ago, we did a massive everybody fish test. We had about 38% of people click on a link that was considered malicious. But about 10% of that 38% then entered credentials that they had, so that someone, if that was a real attack, could have credentials to their machines. We just completed our newest section to no longer do one big test. We're constantly testing. So Mr. Booth might get an email today trying to get him to do something. I might do one tomorrow. There may or may not be another one for a week, but we're constantly testing each member of our network. So the most recent test that we did evaluation on, we had a 7% rather than a 38% click on what could be a malicious link, and 0 persons entered any credentials. So that resounds for one, we brought it to people's attention. 2, we do training, and our training partner, KnowBe4, is a great interactive. They did a little 5-minute training for us that was optional at Christmas time. And it's for the perspective of sitting around a table, and the bad guys were talking about how wonderful it was going to be, the gifts they were going to get based on people giving them information. So it's entertaining and educational at the same time, which is very nice.
Now, do you guys have a report phishing button that you're hoping they'll click, or you accepted if they just delete it?
So it's all guised on how it is. They're coming from different areas, you don't know what they are.
Gotcha.
Every action is recorded, which is one of the things we're pointing across is when you get an email in, if you forward that to me, that can be registered back to whoever sent that. So now they can see Abigail's going to pass it along. I'm going to put it at the top of my list of who I'm going to try to communicate with next time. So those are all the things in the background. And the next step is to put in basically our policy of notify us, but leave it alone. And that way we don't spread anything. So I'm very, very pleased. And I just talked to a couple staff members today about that. And I want to give it up to staff. I don't want this to be an email, hey, you're doing your job. I really want people to understand what a huge difference that is. And it's the human, which is normally our #1 weakness, that's been reinforced. Our computers really aren't doing much any different. It's people paying attention. And then, of course, the training works twice, but they do know. Do you have a question, sir?
Yes, so at my workplace, we have employed this tool to fight social engineering and phishing attacks like that, where we have an automated inbox that we can actually forward those onto that will either A, confirm that it is social engineering, you've detected a phish, and then that email is blocked from accessing the server in the future. Or it'll say you can proceed, click that link, it's safe, this is an official communication. And something like that might help to.
I think that's what we have. It's
Yeah, one of the concerns we had when we were working with our cybersecurity vendor, again, through it is MSNA, correct, sir? Okay, was these layers of stuff like a network operations center. Well, network operations center, a security operations center, is a human and or very complex software 24 hours a day monitoring what's going on. That's pretty intense for us when we have 4 people taking care of 3,200 devices and 1,500 users. But one of the things we found out as Google is now paid for service, it was free for many years. So now we pay for that service. With that comes sandboxing. So when attachments make it through to our email system, it's already been processed through a security system that didn't match up to any known issues. And they basically try to explode. If it is suspicious, they activate it, what happens? In that case, it stops at attachment. It means our attachments come through a little bit slower, but it's another layer of security. So an email service probably is down the road the same way. And again, that didn't cost us any extra because we're already paying for it, but I just took a training that again was free for us. And we learned that those things existed. So Mr. Boothby and I were talking about the budget. I'm saying that's about a $7,500 appliance to do that work. People have to log in the email differently, and it's already sitting at the head of our network, head of our email to begin with. So that was very good news.
But it's real important that we're addressing this issue. And because it goes back to the exposure that we have, because we do have critical information for employees, for students, for families. So we have to take every step that we can take, because people do try to attack our networks
Every day.
and it's a reality, and if there is a, break-in, so to speak, we have to respond to it. There are federal laws that require how we respond. And our insurance coverage requires that we take these steps in order to maintain the coverage, and that is one of the most expensive coverages currently that are out there. So we're moving forward, we're working with it, but it's a challenge. And again, we've gone from very rudimentary, computer system, network system to now very complex.
And every single person on campus has a device that's interacting every single day.
Thank you, Jim. That brings us to the calendar and announcements.
You do have committee assignments.
Yes, I do. Missed that. Sorry about that.
It's a little small.
Got a little small.
Sorry about that.
All right, well, that doesn't give me that much of an excuse. I screwed up, sorry. So we have some committee that need some people to be assigned to them. And we have some people who aren't here, so we can assign them to those committees.
Being voluntold.
Right. So. Where should we send Heather to?
He's currently already on the curriculum committee and
Policy committee.
policy committee,
Okay.
yep, and policy, so
All right.
she's got two.
She's got two and.
I
those are
thought
both-
she resigned, oh no, it was Aspire, she resigned, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it sounds like she's probably doing enough.
Yep.
That's a shame.
You have Mr. Koff, who's not assigned
Yeah,
anything yet.
and he's here, so he can actually volunteer on his own. What are some ones that are opening here? We've got finance, I know.
Policy, finance,
Policy.
curriculum, facilities, all have room.
Do any of those spark your interest?
I'm good with policy and finance.
Policy and finance. There we go.
Outstanding, thank you very much.
So finance is easy, meets just when we do now. We also do review the warrants and sign those. And, those are all kept over at Jim's office. And I don't know, is your schedule flexible enough that you do that during the day at all, or? What we might.
To some extent, my schedule is fairly rigid, but as long as I, know about things well enough ahead of time, I can usually.
What we might want to do is just to start bringing some of those warrants up when we have meetings. So
We had the finance committee, we're down to a number that's more manageable, so
yeah,
that's possible.
okay, so we can look at that. Okay, great. That still leaves us some holes.
Well, you have Mr. Wentworth, who will be joining the board.
Well, that's what I'm thinking of volunteering. Where do we have holes?
Well, facilities committee will be an opportunity.
There's two of us already on that. Is that okay?
Oh, plenty, we have room. You just,
Do we want to put up with it? No.
your committees just can't go over a quorum, so that's
Right.
what we have to
That's
consider.
true.
So,
I think he expressed an interest when we met.
Yeah, I think he would enjoy
That particular
facilities.
committee.
So why don't we put him there temporarily?
that'll-
Does anyone else? I've heard from a few of you that you're all happy right where we're at.
Yeah, so I'm not on that list, but I have taken over as the chair of the curriculum, which I was already on the curriculum committee. I would like to continue to be the chair of that if that's something that anyone feels. they
I
could
would think
nominate for
everybody would
that.
stay in their positions. You're all doing a good job and unless if somebody really wants out, and I hadn't heard from anybody that was the case. Okay. So.
There are no term limits on my take.
which are
None of the subcommittees.
It's like a lot of these volunteer positions. It's as long as you're willing to do the job.
There are still room, if others have interest and want to, curriculum has room for some. Again, we just have to be careful. We can't go over quorum, but we have enough and we're.
And
I
you're
think
still
I-
participating as.
Oh,
public
me and
interest.
Heather.
Perfect. Great. Well, then that takes care of that. Now we can do calendar now.
Move on to calendar.
Curriculum committee is at March 10th, 6 o'clock. And that's going to be remote.
It's actually remote or in person.
Either or, okay.
Sometimes it's crashing into the
Facilities.
facilities committee. He is yours.
Whether we lock the door or not.
Doesn't matter, you can't keep me out.
Just Abby, I sent you an email as well as Evelyn, just so that on that agenda when you develop it, calendar review. That always goes to the curriculum committee before it comes to the school board.
Okay.
And currently, we've started that process working with the regional calendar. Just remind people that by law, we have to be in step with the CTE center we go. There can only be 5 dissimilar days with all the sending schools. So we've spent a lot of time already having those conversations. So
And that's in your email to me.
send it out this evening.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
We have policy committee, March 7th, 5:30.
We do need to meet. We've got a couple of
Yeah.
policies that need to be attended to. And one of them has to do with the food service review.
I appreciate that being in bold.
Yeah, well, I just didn't want to help the
Thank
eyes.
That's because I showed up at 6 o'clock.
Make them a little bigger. All right, and we got finance committee is at March 15th, 5:30, followed by the school board meeting at March 15th at 6. We got facilities committee at March 10th, 4:30. And Inspire, March 1st at 6. Budget workshop will be March 2nd. At 6.
It'll be right here. We'll be ready to go. Okay.
I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Well, I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a